All right, welcome back. So hopefully by now you've already done a bunch of interviews. Now, depending on the person, you're going to want to do anywhere from 5 to 10. You've talked to a whole bunch of people who are your ideal target customers. If you've struggled or you don't quite have those people yet, that's okay. We could still go through this piece, but we do recommend that you get at least 5 people. And something else that we really recommend is make sure you check out our tutorial on competitive analysis. It's one of those things where it's not critical, but it can give you a really great insight in what's going on in the industry. And it really helps to change some of the pain points and things that we're going to be capturing in the next few sections. Don't worry, the really exciting stuff is about to begin. Once we go through this next synthesis, we are going to start talking about how to turn those into marketing messaging, and we're going to start putting them out into the world. So I'm going to walk through this using our fictitious example of that electrified RV company. We didn't actually go out and do interviews. We haven't really done all of a deep dive in the competitive analysis, but you'll see this story kind of come up over and over again. They're placeholders. They're trying to get the idea across so that you have a reference that you can use. So I'm going to jump into how we did our pretend synthesis on our fake company called Electric RV, which is selling conversion kits to existing trailer owners to change their towable trailer into something that's electrified and helps them out in a variety of ways. I'm going to go through that at a really high level next. And then in the next chapter, we're going to start talking about how we're going to turn that stuff into directly testable pain points that start to build some of your marketing messaging. This is an example of our pain point synthesis document. It's going to be available for download. It's either in a link below or there'll be a way to find it from there. The idea is that you're going to go through and find all of the pain points and aspirations that you've managed to pull out of those interviews, or even some of the things that you believe to be true, even if you haven't seen them yet. You go through and you can start pulling out of things that you've heard in your interviews, like people want to enjoy the outdoors and not worry about travel. I have this listed, again, this is all made up, but I have this listed as, hey, sometimes we heard this in the interviews, and I'm identifying it as an aspirational quality. The next one is range anxiety is strong. That's something where we've probably heard that from a few people, but it's definitely a pain point. Now, again, our solution or our made up solution is the idea of electrifying an existing travel trailer. This is something where maybe we were talking about electric vehicles, we were talking about why they would or would not own an electric vehicle today. And so this is a statement that probably came up a few times. It's definitely listed as a pain point. And what I might do here is I might list if I'm talking to, several different organizations, or if I'm building a two-sided marketplace, I'm going to categorize all the different types of pain points, the different types of people I've talked to, and track them all within this document. So I have a few selections here. And the one I'd like to point out is this statement here: people will install their own equipment. So I have this down as a hypothesis. So nobody mentioned it because it didn't come up. Maybe I didn't ask the right questions. The great thing is that as a hypothesis, it means that I can either continue my interviews and see if I can get people to make this statement, or I can just track it and test it in market. There's a bunch of different ways of approaching it. Now, one of the things that I really want to stress here is that if you've done the competitive analysis tutorial, one of the great things you can do here is take the good, the bad, and the ugly statements that have turned into your risks, opportunities, and differentiators, and turn some of those into specific pain points as well. You can either identify things that nobody else is doing that you think are valuable, or you can identify the things that you think create that strong differentiation for your product over everyone else. And those things are great to add into this list, because if you think you found a differentiator and you can throw it in here and we can test, that can be a huge win for you. So again, I strongly recommend doing our competitive analysis piece so that you can start throwing some of those parts in here as well. Once I've gone through and I've added all my statements and I've started to assign how many times I've heard it and what kind of category it falls into and where I've heard it, now I have this enable confidence weighting enabled. I'll show you what that does in a second, but really what matters is that these are the scores that I care about. Now, you can edit this field if you really want to change the document, but we do have a warning set up just to say, hey, maybe you don't want to change these ones. What we've also done, though, is we've taken these statements and we've started to go, okay, well, what's the impact from a tangible perspective? Is it short-term, medium-term? How do I rate the impact? And how do I rate the importance? So I can go through and start creating all these different rankings, and then I can add a confidence. Now I can go off of how many times did I hear it? I can go off of my own feelings on it. I can go off of conversations with my team, and I can start changing my confidence rating. Now, what happens right now is that if I have a low confidence, it drops my weighted score. If I change my confidence and I move up to medium, for example, it starts going up. And of course, if I go all the way up to certain, it boosts that score, right? And eventually what we're going to do is we're going to try to find the top weighted scores so we can use that as our guide in the next piece. Those are going to be the ones that we definitely need to test. We may pull out more. Those are the ones we definitely need to test. If you don't want to include the confidence ranking, you can just uncheck this box and it will remove it and it will just take these two things. The weighted score does give a little bit more of a weighting to the importance side over the impact, but it's a small margin. Again, this confidence rating is the thing that's going to change the score the most, or you can ignore it if you choose to. And the last couple sections here are just adding themes. Now, why this is great is because later when we start to compile these things into pain points, we can start grouping and categorizing them. We can make sure that we have some of those sentiments built out. We can also make sure that maybe we're testing one from each of the themes. So it allows us to go through that. The last piece here is that in these notes, what we tend to do is we'll add in descriptions or quotes, right? So I might say that, hey, this was from an interview and the person said some specific quote, right? It just helps give context to this, which can change your confidence rank. All this said is that what we want to do is make sure that we have all of this categorized and classified. So at a later date, we can go through and pull these things out and turn them into something tangible and meaningful. In the next chapter, we're actually going to talk about how we're going to turn these things more into marketing messaging. All right, so now that we have all of our pain points brought into that one document, we can start seeing where we see trends and where we see opportunities. Now, I know I've said this a couple times already, but do the competitive analysis piece too. It'll really help give clarity as to which pieces are going to create differentiation for your product. Especially if you're moving into a crowded market space, it's a great way to understand how you differentiate and how you're going to start bringing in those customers. And in the next couple steps, we're going to actually test those with real live people. So I hope you really enjoyed the interviews. And if you didn't, well, at least they're over. And now download the document below, make sure that you have everything recorded and listed, calculate all your results, and then jump into the next chapter where we're going to start turning those things into real messages that we're going to test with a real live audience. If you have any questions about this material or anything else, just drop us a line. We'll get right back to you.